Welcome back, Purrfect peeps, to Purrfect.dev. Today, I have with me Kap and Knut from Sanity.io.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hi, everyone.
It's good. Right.
So we had Knut on just over a year ago, and it was before Kap actually started as a DevRel. So we covered a little bit of Knut's background, but we'll get to him in a minute. Kap, do you mind kind of just going through your background and how you found your way to Sanity.io as a DevRel?
Yeah. I don't know how far back you want me to go, but I used to be a flight attendant. I did that for 6 years. It was mainly domestic and a little bit international, but I loved it. I wanted to be a flight attendant my entire childhood. I thought it was just the most glamorous thing. And then I became it, and it was glamorous. I loved it, but I realized it wasn't my forever job. So I started looking into other options, and I was about 28 at the time, 27, 28. No, I think 28.
Age doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I was in my late 20s, and I found coding boot camps to be in 12 weeks, change your career. And I'm like, okay. So I signed up for a coding boot camp, and in 12 weeks, I fire hose of information got started into tech. And my first job out of the boot camp was for a local startup in Las Vegas. I live in Las Vegas. And it was like an agency. And so we kind of dealt with all different types of projects. We did WordPress, we did Vue, we did anything that the project was already built in, we would do, or we would start from scratch. And then, so that was really fun. But then I found a job at Auth0 writing technical articles. And that was also really fun because you learn a lot of different frameworks and a lot of different things. And so did that. And then I realized I really wanted to get into more of the in-person teaching aspect of code, because I always thought the education side of it was phenomenal. So DevRel was becoming more and more popular. So I started looking at what a DevRel person does, and it's exactly what I wanted to do. So I started building my own portfolio for DevRelling, my own YouTube channel, and I started streaming, and I started speaking at conferences, and then Sanity had a position open for DevRel, and I applied.
That's super awesome.
Here I am.
Yeah, that's amazing. My wife was actually going to be a flight attendant and was in the last interview and finally just decided she didn't want to do it. So it's an incredible story to hear someone that went through that and then kind of shifted gears. We were just talking last night on a Twitter space about just how you can start anywhere and end up in tech. So it's a really great story to hear. Knut, tell me, since the last time we talked, fill in the viewers who don't know you a little bit, how you got started in Sanity, but then we'll catch up on the rest.
Yeah, I wasn't a flight attendant, but I also kind of entered tech through maybe unusual means. I don't know, but yeah, we last spoke February 2020, right?
Yeah, right before things got a little crazy.
Yeah, that's 10 startup years.
Yes.
So the summer, what happened since then? I don't know. February of 2020, I was actually in the Bay Area. And looking back, super naive, because I flew back in mid-February to Norway, where I am now, and I've been for a year. And then the pandemic just hit. But yeah, I was able to hire a team of DevRels though that summer, and Kap is one of them. Lauren, who is in the chat room, I think, or one of the chat rooms, is another, and we just hired Martin, who started on Monday. So it's a good small team of DevRels. So that's super awesome and exciting. So yeah,
that's amazing.
It's quiet. It's better now.
I bumped you up, so maybe I should reset it here. Let me reset you.
Maybe I'm quiet. Maybe
there you
I'm
go.
Just kind of super calm and mellow. Maybe. Yeah.
You're always mellow, but I think you're just a little bit far away from the mic.
Right. I'll try to speak better.
I'm glad you guys get to see the comments. I always forget that. So awesome. No, it's good background, and it's crazy that you kind of ended up back in Norway and you're hanging out. So you probably haven't had any opportunity to come back to California or anything, right?
No, I haven't. Yeah. I haven't met my colleagues in real life.
Oh, that's
Can't wait.
shocking and unfortunate all at the same time.
Isn't that interesting that like in today's like tech scene or in a lot of like industries, you just don't meet your colleagues nowadays because everything that's going on.
But soon.
Yeah, it makes some
Soon.
things easier and other things a lot harder.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, for those who are just kind of jumping on because you've never heard of Sanity.io, but you just like listening to these podcasts and things, let's tell them a little more about Sanity.io. Kap, would you mind taking that one?
Yeah. So Sanity is a content for structured platform or platform for structured content. So really, if you have a website and you have content on it, you could use Sanity as the content handler. So for example, if you had like an e-commerce and you wanted to manage your t-shirts and your pants and the different sizes and who's ordering and what users you have, all that can be in your Sanity Studio. The Sanity Studio is the UI side of your content. So you'll have the ability to like update and change and make it however you need it to look. It's built in React, so you can really customize it. But yeah, if you have content and you want to manage it and structure it, then Sanity is what you would use.
So kind of on that note, Knut, like if we were to compare that to a different CMS, like you name it, Contentful, whatever you want to put out there, how does structured content really change the game when we're talking about CMSs?
Yeah, so not everyone knows what the CMS is either, I guess. But when we say CMS, we mean content management system. Like, by the way, like all of these 3-letter acronyms that are floating around these days, like Gatsby just launched 2 new ones at least. So yeah, I can't blame you if you don't follow all of them. But content management systems, right? WordPress. A lot of you probably knows WordPress. It has been there for ages. It's kind of like the go-to content management system for many. Adobe Experience Manager or something would be another
ADM,
one, right?
There you go.
So a bunch of this has been there forever, and they are kind of specialized in driving a website. Like that's it, and they produce HTML, and you can go in and fill forms to kind of like put out content, I guess. And then a couple of years ago, we had this drive towards APIs. Devs want to kind of like interact with APIs rather. So we had this new category called headless CMSs popping up, and Contentful would be one of them, I guess. There are a bunch of other ones as well. But they kind of like took that idea of driving a website and just put it behind APIs. So you had kind of like a bunch of HTML coming through or Markdown and so on. And when we, in like 2016 or something, started to build Sanity, we didn't want to do the same thing. We wanted to think about content as data. We wanted it to be queryable, to kind of like for it to be possible to interact with it also via APIs, not just pull it out, but also kind of like mutate it and change it and so on, and do it in real time. So we kind of built this system from the ground up. So to build on what Kap said, it's also a hosted, we call it a content lake, like a hosted data store. You can just pour in some JSON files, and then you can start querying them and access them through the Sanity Studio. So yeah, and we also built this around this idea of structured content. So you shouldn't kind of like model your content, your fields and document types after where it's presented, but what it means to you and your organization. And that unlocks a lot of interesting opportunities and possibilities. And I can speak for hours about this.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I want to show off the page on structured content. So let me bring that up really quick, and I'll describe it when we switch this over to audio only. Right. So basically what's on the page here is structured content at the top, but it's also breaking down each piece of Sanity and how it works. So there's the image pipeline part of this. So it's actually backed by a CDN for all of your images,
CDNs
right?
All over the place. Yeah, even for content queries. Yeah.
So CDN, another 3-letter content delivery network.
Yeah. A server near you.
Yeah, exactly. So sitting on the edge, server closest to you is going to provide you this content off to you, and that's built into Sanity. So you don't have to like jump out to Cloudinary or any other image opportunity there. It's right there. So the piece that I think we were just talking about, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, was somewhat of this portable text idea.
Yeah.
And I think this one's important because if you're a developer and you're used to like grabbing a WordPress API, for instance, it's a mess. Like it's just data, right? The neat part about the portable text is you can actually start to define the different parts of that and what it looks like so you can stylize it. Kap, do you have a little more you want to add on that side of it?
Yeah, so portable text is stored as JSON, and JSON can be used everywhere. So the really like awesome thing about portable text is your content is now portable. Like you can take it to mobile, you can take it to desktop, and because it's stored in that JSON format and you have, marks on it and it's bolded, it can be read as bolded everywhere. But yeah, that JSON format allows for that portability.
For sure. It's a little tricky at first to like realize what's happening, but then once you do and you read the JSON and you realize how powerful it is, it really allows you to switch from like, hey, on desktop I want this font and this is important, over to like mobile where something else is, but you still know like that content needs to be a certain way. So it's very powerful. I think early on when Knut and I were talking, it was mostly about I wanted Markdown because as a developer, like that was always huge. So we'd always talk about how can I convert from my Markdown into what we would usually store in Sanity itself. Can you guys talk a little bit about like how that storage occurs and like why you would want to convert in and out of it?
Like why you want something like portable text instead of Markdown?
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. So Markdown, that was designed as kind of like an easier way to write and read HTML when you wrote blog posts, right? Back in the early 2000s. And since that, the web have evolved and the way we think about content has evolved. For example, if you go into a Notion document, you have all of these different blocks, right?
Yeah.
It's not just paragraphs and headings. It's kind of like rich content block stuff. And that pattern you see a lot of places, like WordPress added Gutenberg to kind of like achieve the same thing. Markdown, it's kind of like hard in Markdown. You have to invent shortcodes, or you have to start writing something like JSX and have this MDX format. So what we thought, like we wanted this presentation agnostic format so that you can take it, as Kap said, into desktop or mobile, whatever. And we wanted also to support kind of like a rich block content. And we wanted to let you kind of like describe exactly the data structure you wanted. So you can transform that into whatever, right? A cool call to action box in between your paragraphs or something like that. And that's why you want to store things in it. And not only that, when you do that, it gets queryable. You get queryable block content. So you can start asking the content like questions like, give me all of the documents that has more than 2 call to actions, and there is a code span somewhere in a paragraph. It's maybe not so useful to query for exactly that, but you can, and that's cool.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of show, I believe, and you guys can fill me in on the history of this. The original Sanity and how it was written, it was mainly, and still is the case, it was a hosted backend solution only. So there wasn't like the studio in the early days or anything like that, correct?
Always been.
Always. See? Yeah. Totally wrong. The only reason I bring this up is there's often probably solutions out there. So Contentful is an example of this, where they have their own hosted UI. I'm going to bring it up and hopefully you can walk through it a little better than I can mumble through it. So
Yeah.
Here is the back end on the Management Studio. Take it from there, and I'll jump around wherever we need to.
So for the podcast listeners, you're now watching a white screen with some boxes. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So what you have up now is what we call it manage. It's where we can kind of like configure projects and so on. This is kind of like more like put in some building information or add some course origin settings. It's kind of like how you can interact with also the data lake or the content lake part of the system. So it's not that exciting, but it's a bit exciting. But the magic is probably in your next tab.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to point out what I'm going to do here is these are 3 different projects that I run. This one here is the one we're going to look at of my old studio. Instead of coding cat, I used to run Agent P, and then we moved on. But this is Sanity Studio. So tell the folks how this actually works.
So this is the Sanity Studio, and this is now for a specific project. So what we were looking at before is like an overview, like the admin overview of every Sanity project that you have under your specific email, whatever your login was. And then this one is the UI that I was talking about earlier of your content. So you have on the left, we see like notes, blog posts, courses. And then as you click into each one, it will dive further into that specific type. So you'll have all your courses listed out, and then you can create new ones from here. You can edit, delete, update. You can do all the things to your content here. Like you could drop images in and add alt text. But this is the UI for your specific content for a specific project. So one of the 3 from that list in your managed platform or dashboard.
And so I think you guys have brought up a couple times now WordPress. How does this differ from WordPress at this point? Like my front end's all good to go, right?
Yeah, there are many ways it differs. First of all, everything inside of this interface is real time. So in WordPress, you would be locked out of document. If I was in the document, you couldn't edit it at the same time, right? That you can do in this interface. And the other thing, I saw that you had kind of like this neat list of content types. You had courses and lessons, and like that's kind of like that's structured content, right? You can take those different types and put it in different places and so on. It's not just pages, right? And WordPress was built around the idea of having posts and pages and page types, right? But this is more content types, so it's more freed from whatever the presentation is. And the way you did this, way you made this happen was by writing some fairly simple JavaScript objects, right, in code, and then the studio just generates from there. And that's another difference. You don't point and click this. You actually control your content models with code that you can check into Git and so on. So we think that is probably great.
Yeah, and that differs a lot from WordPress and other tools. It's not you creating those objects and basing it. It's a lot of clicking around and dealing with things, and you don't have that in code anymore either. So I love the fact you can use this almost I'll say as infrastructure as code. It's more like content as code kind of thing. Structure.
We are infrastructure. Like we deliver now currently 6 billion API requests a month for pretty large companies. So if you order a burger in North America, there's a chance that hit our API. So yeah.
And just based on those JavaScript objects, essentially, though, you're almost manipulating your own API that is hosted by Sanity, right? It's kind of without you doing a whole lot of like API gateway management or anything like that. It just magically occurs that now you have this wonderful, it's not graph, it's all JSON REST based, right? But you do offer a GraphQL version of it as well.
Yeah, we have a field or kind of like a concept called references. So you can make kind of like a reference between those JSON documents, and we index those references. So you can actually also query them. So you can say, give me all documents that has reference to this document, for example. So you can actually make kind of like a graph in the system, as you say. And yeah, it's true. We also have a GraphQL API offering, and we have this other query language called Groq.
That's
That is,
Groq,
yeah,
correct?
it is Groq.dev. Go check it out.
I'll put that
But
in the
yeah,
notes.
and that is open source. You can actually use it elsewhere as well, like in your CLI or whatever.
The one thing that I want to jump to another subject because I think it's going to help people somewhat understand a little bit how they want to use Sanity. For a lot of people listening to this podcast, we're web developers, and this one's for Kap because I think without spoiling all of our perfect picks, you did a little something about Next.js and Sanity. Can you talk a little bit more about like how Sanity might be used within a Next.js project?
Yeah. So the really awesome thing about Sanity is it really can be used on any front end. Like if you want to use Next, if you want to use Next, you can use it there. With Next being being React based, and Sanity being built React based, it's a nice way to kind of like not have to have too many things going on in your brain and you're not like dealing between the two things. But I recently did a Next and Sanity video where it was recipes. And I did one of the like dynamic things I did was I did a like button. And that like button, I added a like field to my studio. So in the code, I added a serverless function that had a token and all this stuff. And every time and then I added the schema type. And every time I clicked on the like button on the front end, on my next side, it would go to my studio and update that number as well. So I had an initial value of 0. And I didn't want to update in the studio. I wanted the users to be able to update that number, but I wanted to record that number and save it to my studio. So that connection was like really awesome between the two. And Next is just really intuitive when it comes to doing that kind of stuff. You don't have to do too much. There was just a file I added and maybe 10 lines of code to get a like button ready for users. So Next is great on its own, but like adding Sanity and having all your content managed that way, I think the pair works out really great.
So you were talking about like executing some dynamic type of updates to the Sanity backend. I don't know if you've done this or not, or Knut, either of you. When you actually build a Next.js site, there's basically 3 types of rendering that can occur, right? There's client-side rendering, server-side rendering, and static rendering. Have you guys experienced how to use Sanity to build some of those different types in the backend? I think, Kap, you just covered kind of the client side, but specifically like static rendering. How do you usually use Sanity to do that?
Yeah. Like Sanity.io runs on Next, and it does all of those things. so yeah, actually,
do you find when you're building out like static pages, you're typically using like the Groq based query language to do that though?
Yeah, we use the Groq based language. We even make the GraphQL API. That's Groq underneath.
Cool.
Like it translates the GraphQL queries to Groq. so we're all about that, right? But yeah, I actually like Next was actually the first project I did with Sanity back in 2017 was actually with Next.
Oh,
but
nice.
they didn't have the static generation. It was only get initial props.
Yep.
And we run it on an Express server on Heroku. I feel dated.
No, it's all good.
Do you remember running live servers?
Oh gosh, yeah.
But anyways, but yeah, all of those things. And as Kap said, it's pretty easy with these data fetching methods with Next. And I would probably go with the static ones. Those seems to be the most performant and most often the most convenient. And you just have to kind of like figure out the paths that you have to generate and get the right data. But that should be not hard with Groq. Probably easier with Groq than GraphQL even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, for
Update.
example, I'll bring this kind of back up, even though it's kind of our old site. When we look at courses here, if I wanted to build out a page for every single one of these courses, we'd go into get static props and get
Yeah.
static paths. It's been a minute.
Yes.
Okay. So we would take and say, okay, find me all the courses, or like the top 100 courses or blog posts, whatever it might be. Go fetch those from the Sanity server, and or Sanity API. And that's actually running on a server that's usually like, I think they're using Lambdas. I think it's AWS under the hood. So that runs on that Lambda and actually produces out all of these different HTML and whatever the browser can understand directly to a file that is produced at that point and can be released out. So you're actually at that point calling the API not live, not interactively, but statically, kind of off of a server. So it's pretty cool once you start thinking about all the opportunities you have there to hit both the front end and the back end using Sanity's APIs.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty amazing what the folks over at Vercel and Next has done. They kind of give you a lot of options. So for some pages, they don't change that much. It makes sense to just build them when you build the site. And for others, they might change a lot. Like a product page with kind of like, I don't know, live counters or comments, whatever. And those can also, then you can kind of like serve them dynamically, but also cache them in a smart way. So they just kind of like don't generate an API request every time someone visits them. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
I have this other question in our list, and I don't remember writing it. Maybe someone else put it here. It says, is there an official way to structure your content on Sanity? Is that like a thing?
Yeah, I saw the question. I was like,
I don't know. I don't know that there is, other than like we kind of talked about JavaScript objects, right?
I don't know, like, but it's a big question, like how to actually structure content and how to actually make content models, right?
Yeah.
And we come here and say that you shouldn't think about kind of like presentation. You shouldn't kind of like make a page type and try to kind of like mimic being a Squarespace or whatever. You should kind of like detach yourself from that thinking. But that isn't always easy, or kind of like it's a kind of like a different way of thinking. So what I tend to say is like, when you like model your content, think about the next time you're going to redesign this site, or the next time you want to try out a new framework. How easy will that be? And if the answer is not easy, because I have kind of like baked in a lot of prepositions about the framework into my content model, then you should probably take a step back and think a bit, or just ask us in the community. Yeah, and help you out.
Yeah, I should have brought that up early on. The Slack community for Sanity.io is unbelievable. You can find so many answers there. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I am going
to find it though.
What's that?
How do you even join that community? That's fantastic.
I actually have no idea. Kap, how do you join it?
You can join by going to slack.sanity.io. And I don't know how to add to the comments because it doesn't have the little bar for me. But Alex, if you could add that.
Did I miss a comment completely?
No. I just, because in the StreamYard, you can't like add.
Sanity.io. Boom.
Yeah.
Out there.
Right.
There it is.
In the world. So I'm kind of curious, since it's been a year and a half plus, what's changed in Sanity since that time? There's one big thing I saw recently about conditional fields, but is there other stuff? Like, there must be.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, going like really far back, when I first started in July, Presence was just coming out. Oh, yeah. And Presence is where you have like your little avatar at the upper right-hand corner of the studio. And then you can see your coworkers or whoever has access to that studio, where they are. You can like link to them and it'll take you directly to them. But Presence, that was a a minute ago.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And review changes, I guess.
review
So
changes also.
every change that happens, not just in the studio, like in your content lake, it's attributed to a kind of like a person or user, and you can roll it back and kind of interact with it. You can even kind of write your own custom diff components if you want to. So that's a big one. That's kind of like suggest changes in Google Doc, I guess. The recent one you talked about, conditional fields, is a funny one because that's one of the most requested features, like for 3 years. And we have a thing about wanting to do things right, and that means that some obvious features takes a while. But this one was pretty funny because it's only kind of like adding a function callback to the hidden property. But it's pretty powerful because you can take values that is in your document or the user that is in the studio, and you can kind of like decide whether a field should like be hidden or visible based on that. And that's good for content editors, especially in kind of like organizations that use Sanity kind of like seriously for real. They tend to have a lot of fields, so this will kind of like reduce the cognitive cost of like looking at that form. So yeah,
I think there's another one with
There's more.
what's the there's like predefined values, I think was added.
Initial values. Yeah.
Initial values. Yep.
Yeah.
That was always a big one because like when you have objects out there, you want certain things like to be true or set to true right away, or have a value of Michigan because everyone loves Michigan as a state, and then they can pick their own type of thing.
Yeah, and we now there's support for that also on field level. It used to only be on the document level. Now you can set it for fields, and it can be a promise. So you can even kind of like fetch initial value from somewhere else if you want to, and that's pretty powerful.
Cool.
And
I'm sure there's a lot.
Last thing, like
say that again.
Santiy UI. We haven't talked a lot about it because it's kind of like still in development, but we have refactored the whole studio. We've kind of switched out the old CSS modules with Santiy UI, which is kind of like a style components based library, but that also makes it now easy to, if you make your own custom input components or whatever, you can like use the same building breaks that we use, and it looks kind of like coherent, like the same as the kind of like official things. So that's pretty cool.
That is cool. I'm sorry I missed that one.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it a lot. So
I'm sure I've missed like several things, and I want to just throw it out there to the folks again.
We release a new version every week.
Yeah, you do. So what have I missed? I don't see a lot of questions coming up. There's got to be other things that in a year and a half that I'm just completely missing on Sanity. We covered some of the key points, but what am I missing? Anything?
Probably.
There's a lot of content that you like if you're starting with Sanity and you kind of don't know where to go. I have created a getting started. I think it's called Getting Started with Sanity.io. It lives on Traversy's YouTube and also one of our web pages. I can't remember the page, but I walk you through building out your own studio and kind of getting like schemas in there and manipulating your studio from the code side. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Oh, Crash Course. That's what it's called. Sanity.io Crash Course. But yeah, if you don't really know where to start, this is a good video. And then that video that was the perfect pick of me in that Next.js video. If you want to get started with Next.js and Sanity, that's also a really great place to start. Or if you are unfamiliar with Groq, the query language we were talking about, I have created a bunch of Groq in 2 videos, and you can find those on Sanity's YouTube channel.
Cool.
And yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of content, as Kap said, and a lot of that content you can find on a new section of Santiy.io called Sanity.io/exchange. And that's pretty cool because we have, like as I said, we have a fantastic community. A lot of developers, a lot of them are also contributing to the ecosystem. and those contributions end up here. So you can kind of like go through them and browse and find plugins and guides and starters and even schema snippets if you kind of like wondering about how to model something. So that's pretty neat. And there's starters like Hull is a fantastic Next.js, Shopify, Vercel Sanity starter. Like it's kind of like it's a complete full-fledged e-commerce solution, and you can get up and going in pretty small amount of time. So yeah, a lot of stuff is happening, and we're also working on some exciting stuff.
Purrfect Picks. So I'm going to open Kap's first perfect pick here.
Yes. So my two perfect picks are animes, and they're very different. But Jujutsu Kaisen is one I actually just started yesterday, and I'm about 5 episodes into it. It's very like action. It's very like My Hero Academia, if you've seen that. A lot of the characters remind me of that, and the like crew at the beginning reminds me of the Naruto crew with like Sasuke and Sakura and Naruto and Kakashi, but very good. And then my other one,
sorry,
is Your Lie in April. Very different than Jujutsu Kaisen. This one is more of like a drama, but it's about this piano player who stopped playing piano, and I play the piano, so I was very interested in watching it. But he gets back into piano playing when one of his friends needs a pianist for her violin like performance. She needed an accompanist. And so he went in, and yeah, it's just the story of that. So 2 very different animes, but 2 very good animes.
Very cool. Is Crunchyroll like the best spot to find these? I just searched, and that's what I came up with.
I don't use Crunchyroll. I use Funimation or like Netflix or HBO Max is where Jujutsu Kaisen is right now.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with. I don't watch anime. I'll fully admit it. Sorry.
It's okay.
I was like, where do I go find these? So that's good to know.
Yeah. But yeah, Crunchyroll is a good one, but I just don't use it.
Cool. Knut, your first pick.
Yeah, I Fortet. I listen to a lot of music, and sometimes you want to listen to music when you kind of concentrate on coding or writing or whatever. And for the last month or so, I've been on YouTube listening to Fortet's live sets from the lot. And it's just super great, super good. Recommended. Check it out.
I saw there was like a YouTube of them, pretty incredible. With the live version of that. But it looks like they have a Bandcamp down here, so
yeah, you
definitely
can
go support them if you like them.
And all that. Yeah,
awesome.
Probably should go to the Bandcamp, right?
Support your artists. Come on, get out there, people. Your second pick, I thought was pretty sweet. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's I've been using it for a month or so, but it's pretty slick. It's kind of like autocomplete for your terminal, and it does some magic. I use it with iTerm. You can probably use it with whatever, but it kind of like gives you this nice VS Code style autocomplete. And I'm surprised for how like many commands it supports. And it also makes it easier to just kind of like browse through your file system in your terminal. That can be kind of like a hurdle if you're not that used with the terminal. So it's pretty great. You should check it out.
The thing I like about this is I always LS to just see everything.
Yeah.
And this takes away the need to do that.
It does.
Yeah, that's really great. Cool. Unfortunately, Brittney wasn't able to make our pod today, and she had a pick out here. I'm sorry for the photo where I captured it at, but
that's me.
I had to get the Sanity logo in there. So Kap did a little Next.js for beginners with Sanity backing Next. So that's Brittney's perfect pick, even though she couldn't make it today.
Right on.
My perfect pick is in the same vein, actually. So on Vercel, you can use integrations, and one of their integrations is Sanity's, And the cool part is when you execute or like when you add this to your project, it actually puts all of the public environment variables where they need to be. And then this one is kind of like what we were talking about before with that private variable. You can actually run that server side to do things that you need to do, write to the database, pipe it through an API on Next.js, whatever you might need that for. So it's really easy. And there's some pre-canned solutions out there. My second pick, I always try to do a technical one and a fun one. I've been addicted to this game. I'm not a big gamer at all. And I'm not a great golfer, terrible golfer, but this game, I'm just like, oh, I gotta like get a hole in one. I've gotta get a birdie. Like I can't get off.
Are you a
of
great
it.
golfer in this game? That's the question.
I'm an okay golfer in this game. Like
Okay.
I'm terrible in real life. I'm probably like decent in this game, but you know, it's fulfilling my dream of like I just hit a 40-foot putt. That's amazing, and like I pretend I did that in real life.
Now you got to take it to the driving range and practice.
That's right. So what have I missed? I don't see a lot of questions coming up. There's got to be other things that in a year and a half that I'm just completely missing on Sanity. We covered some of the key points, but what am I missing? Anything?
Probably.
There's a lot of content that you like if you're starting with Sanity and you kind of don't know where to go. I have created a getting started. I think it's called Getting Started with Sanity.io. It lives on Traversy's YouTube and also one of our web pages. I can't remember the page, but I walk you through building out your own studio and kind of getting like schemas in there and manipulating your studio from the code side. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Oh, okay. Crash course. That's what it's called. Sanity.io crash course. But yeah, if you don't really know where to start, this is a good video. And then that video that was the perfect pick of me in that Next.js video. If you want to get started with Next.js and Sanity, that's also a really great place to start. Or if you are unfamiliar with Groq, the query language we were talking about, I have created a bunch of Groq in 2 videos, and you can find those on Sanity's YouTube channel.
Cool.
And yeah.
Yeah, so just like there's a bunch of content, as Kap said, and a lot of that content you can find on a new section of Santiy.io called Sanity.io/exchange. And that's pretty cool because we have, like as I said, we have a fantastic community. A lot of developers, a lot of them are also contributing to the ecosystem, and those contributions end up here. So you can kind of like go through them and browse and find plugins and guides and starters and even schema snippets if you can like wondering about how to model something. So that's pretty neat. And there's starters like Hull is a fantastic Next.js, Shopify, versatile Sanity starter. Like it's kind of like it's a complete full-fledged e-commerce solution, and you can get up and going in pretty small amount of time. So yeah, a lot of stuff is happening, and we're also working on some exciting stuff.
I have to say, like the community surrounding Sanity, I put it right next to like Gatsby. There's such passion behind it, and I love it. Hey, Brittney was able to throw a little comment in, guys. She
Hi,
said,
Brittney.
"Sorry, Britt.
Hello, yeah, you should have been here."
Yeah.
We'll give her a lecture later. Okay, well, I think that's it. Sanity is an amazing product. More power to like where it's headed. I can't wait to see. Like, we can't make it another year and a half though, guys. So maybe we'll have you on in like 6 months.
Yeah, you know where to find us.
Yeah.
Or you can just join every week. I love you guys so much. Like, we can just hang out.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you next time.
Right. See ya.
Bye, everyone.